Hello, and welcome back to I'll Have What She's Having. And in this episode, we go deep on what it actually means to trust yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, you can't fully relax into sex, you can't go with the flow, and you won't be having the greatest sex. You second guess what you want, you overthink what your partner is thinking, and you wonder the whole time if you're doing it right instead of actually feeling what's happening in your body. And that's exactly what today's conversation covers. We are talking about self trust in a lived, embodied, moment to moment kind of way. I'm joined by Andrea Janssen today, who is a confidence and self trust coach who helps healers, coaches, and humans just like yourself reconnect with their intuition, their bodies, and their truth. This is the foundation of confidence, connection, and deeply satisfying sex. We talk about why so many people feel stuck in overthinking, second guessing, and self doubt, and why trying to think your way out of it often just keeps you spinning, right? We explore questions like, how do you know the difference between intuition and fear? Why does confidence have nothing to do with always knowing the answer? What does it really mean to be in your body? And why is that the key to self trust? How do you actually develop confidence? Why can't mindset work alone actually create lasting change? And how do you start to rebuild trust with yourself when you've been disconnected for a long time? We also get into radical honesty, right? The power of telling yourself the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It's amazing how many of us don't actually tell ourselves the truth, and how that becomes the gateway to real confidence, real connection, and again, better sex. I think my favorite part about this conversation is that when I first approached Andrea about being on the podcast, she didn't quite see how a conversation together would really fit into the larger conversation about better sex. But of course, by the end of this episode, it was abundantly clear. So let's dive in. And of course, there are a few quick announcements. So first, my dears, let me tell you all about my next retreat. It's called Wild Woman Unleashed. It's an initiation into your next self. The version of you that is so ready to be wild and sexually free. The version who's past ready to be fully confident in your body, who wants to tune into the greater rhythms of your womanhood and nature itself. It'll be at this luxurious retreat space surrounded by thick jungle. We have no neighbors. It's an intimate group that's gathering. We learn the essential pleasure skills that we were never taught, and we come home to ourselves. So, like I said, a whole week in Mexico next February. It will be launching so soon that it might even have already launched by the time this episode airs. So head on over to krishall.ca and apply, check out the details, and make sure to do so early so you can grab those early bird prices before they expire. I am unbelievably excited for this experience, and I have no doubt that if you feel the pull, that this will change your life. So apply now using the link in the show notes, and I'll see you in Mexico. Next, if you haven't heard yet how to work with me, you can do some one-on-one sex coaching. It is completely custom tailored to you and your needs. So the first step to working with me is a free 15-minute consultation call where we chat about what's really going on for you. You get to feel heard and understood. You get to feel seen. And that's it. 15 minutes. We either say yes or we say no. Maybe it's right for you, maybe it's not, but the 15 minutes could be the thing that shifts you into your most embodied, alive life. And so you can book that first call using the link in the show notes. And next, if you want to try out some of my best sex techniques, the best way is through my free offer called the Pleasure Portal. It's a free 15-minute pleasure breath work. It's all guided where you get to come alive in your sexuality and practice the essential sex skills that I promise you already have. All of us have them. We just weren't taught that those are the tools that we should be accessing, the skills that we should be developing to have even more amazing sex. So I'm so excited for you to check that out. Once again, those links are in the show notes. All right, now on to the episode. All right, welcome. So good to have you here today, Andrea. How's it going today?
I'm good. Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I love taking different professions and different like angles into sexuality and being like, see, this actually relates to sexuality. Everything relates to sexuality.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious to let's start with tell me about yourself. Tell me about how you found this career, how you found your way into it.
Mm,
And most of all, I'm so curious about the world, like the word like self-trust guide. Like tell us more about what
yeah.
that means.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a self-trust guide for, healers, life coaches, energy practitioners, and I specifically help them, feel confident and trust themselves in their sessions with clients. So, like, that's a big thing of just constantly feeling not good enough, accumulating certifications, overthinking everything. Did I do the right thing? Worrying that you're gonna hurt someone. And how I kind of stumbled into it was, how I stumbled into it is it's me essentially. I am my clients. I am a chronic overthinker. Um, and really what I eventually kind of discovered was I was not listening to my intuition. Like that's kind of where overthinking comes in is focusing more on the mind versus what your intuition is telling you. So that's kind of how I stumbled in. It's not even necessarily stumbled. It's more of like that's what and why I chose the word guy is more because I see myself more as like a role model, versus the sage on the stage and the one that has all the answers. And like I'm still in it. I still deal with it. I'm learning these things and sharing what has worked for me. And um, so that's kind of why I usually choose why I use the word guide versus like a coach or a leader, something along those lines.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like how you, like, really touch into the idea of, people who are kind of on that, like, course treadmill where they're like, "Oh, I'll get the next certification and the next certification and the next one, and that'll finally
Yes.
make me ready, and I'll finally be ready once I do that." And, like, oh my gosh, you start to hear that a lot.
Yes. It's something that I, for certain, experience myself, but absolutely 100% every single one of my clients experience. I mean, it is a thing. I think there's one thing of like, we love learning. Like I think there's like this natural wanting to, awaken and raise our consciousness and like expand our consciousness. And so there's nothing wrong with wanting to learn and discover new tools. Everyone loves tools. The distinguishing factor is what is the motivation behind it? Is it coming from a place of one, I need to find this thing outside of myself that will, once I find it, will solve, everything will click into place. Or I need it because I don't feel good enough. If I don't want to hurt someone, so I need to gather as many tools as I can. Or is it coming from a space of like, wow, this is really cool. It lights me up. I'm excited about this and I want to like discover this. Like it's not, to me, those are kind of things that I talk with my clients of like, what is the motivation? What is the intention behind, why you're doing what you're doing? And I think that's really key, asking those
Yeah,
questions.
totally. Yeah, like the why. The why is the most important thing. And like I always say, like I won't yuck your yum, like whatever your preference is, relationship, sexual, whatever, like
Mm,
great, but what's your why? Because so many people do like great things but for the wrong reason or like yeah, they haven't thought enough about like why is this your choice? And like I'm never going to knock anything as long as it's like no, this deeply works for me.
yeah. I love that expression. I've never heard that before. Yuck or yum. I love it.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Never going to yuck your yum.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and a lot of, along those lines too is like, there is no kind of wrong decision. Like there's no wrong, that to me, to me, what really fuels me is spiritual, like all these kind of deeper truths and deeper, kind of aspects. And so it's like, even if you do what you do is, to me, it's more of kind of like tapping into what is true for you. Because to me, when you are aligned to your intuition, you are in pleasure. That's my experience is like when you're aligned to, like, and I know aligned is kind of an overused word, but when you're, connected and acting from a place that's true to who you are on a soul level, that's pleasure, that's joy, that's, pleasure. So, yeah.
Mhm. And, like, okay, but I think we all agree that, like, yes, we wanna act from truth, but the trouble is, what is our truth, and how do we find that in this
Yeah.
giant soup of possibilities in this beautiful world we live in? How do we know what's true for us?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I really believe that we are born this is this other thing, and I talk about this a lot, is like a lot of people think that having intuition is for like special magical people. It's for like not for me, or if it's something that I have to like really build and work on. It's my perspective that we're actually born connected to our intuition. And through our society, through conditioning, it's really like stumped down, and through like, even the most well meaning parent, like there's no diss to, to anyone, any of our parents. We've just grown up in a culture that has gone many centuries that does not does not teach us how to listen to what's true for us. So I think in part, like we're born knowing this, and it just kind of gets stumped out for, in a variety of ways. I mean, we could go down, there's rabbit holes of like controlling people, but also just like, if you just think like as a human being, as a parent, or if you have a single parent, it's just so much more easier to manage someone who listens to what you say versus like do what they want. If the child wants to go, like that, I want to go play and I want to go and do these things, or, you know, I mean, it could be so many things. If you just look at children, like they want to eat this and they don't want to eat that, like what mom has prepared. And mom's like, I got to, like I don't need to make this, I don't have time to make this thing anymore. It just kind of like we slowly start to learn that it's like to just suppress our truth. And so for me that, just so part of my work is reclaiming that. And a lot of where it comes from is validation, validating our truth. And so if it's, our whole life, it hasn't been validated, or it's been squashed, or it's been, repressed or taught, like, you only need to listen to your mind, because to me, intuition comes through the body and specifically comes through the heart. So that's where, that's where it kind of feels overwhelming, because like, the mental body is in the fourth dimension, it's infinite. Like there is so many of all these different possibilities, but like when we really tune in, usually answers right there. Like it's actually quite simple, it's not kind of these infinite, the mind can feel like it's infinite, but when we really kind of tune in, it's usually quite clear.
Yeah, it is like I've heard it said that, an anxiety response will sound like a yell, right? It'll sound like somebody's yelling at you, but then the intuition comes as more of like a whisper. And it's like
Yes.
this tiny little whisper, and is being able to get quiet enough to be able to hear the whisper, and then being able to trust the whisper is a whole other thing, because I mean, it's happened to me so many times that I'm like, okay, well, there's this really loud voice saying this, like, okay, here's like a I mean, there's like dumb examples, like I'm on a plane and I'm anxious about, the plane not making its destination or whatever, right? And that's such a loud voice in my head. And I'm
Yes.
sitting there going, this isn't intuition. Stop thinking that it is. It's just anxiety. But the difference between anxiety and intuition is so hard to parse out sometimes, because you're like, but what if that was like some deep knowing?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to, yeah, I love that you hit on that, because that's another key thing that comes up, is that I hear over and over again is is it my intuition or is it fear? Like, how do I discern or decipher between the two? And exactly that, like, I'm having this really strong feeling, this fear around this thing. Maybe it's a premonition, maybe it's a sign to, not do this particular thing. And I loved when you were talking, what was like coming up for me is the importance of the body, right? Like it is 100%. Yeah, I mean, you can think all day long and be detached from your body, right? Like that's, like the somatic work and why the body is so important. And especially in terms of your intuition. So to me, you have to be in your body to hear your intuition. And what the thing is, and this is part of why the work that I do, like the healing work, and why healing work is so important, is because where if we've experienced any sort of trauma, if we've experienced, like the majority of us don't feel, I don't say the majority, maybe the majority of us don't feel safe in our bodies for whatever reason, for whatever we've experienced, whether we've experienced trauma with a big T or a small t. And so I think that's another reason why it's difficult to hear your intuition is because there's this stuff that's in the way, but we don't feel safe in our body. So we don't even want to go in there. So that's why we hang out up here because we don't have to come in our body, we don't have to be in our body when we're up here. And so that's where it's so much easier to be in the mind than it is in the body, unless you do, the somatic work. And then you find how safe you actually like, how actually safe it is to be in your body, to be in that container, to be in that space, and how much pleasure is in there as well. But, when we've
Yeah.
had these experiences, whoop, you know, up and out, see you later.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of, and this I didn't have this perspective until, of course, the last course I took, and my intention behind this course wasn't I need to do this so that I'm worthy. My intention was this is a really interesting place I want to learn about, and so I learned about Vipassana meditation, and I did a 10-day silent course. And it's the funny thing is I'd heard so many reports from so many other people, and nothing of what I heard from other people was true for me. And I'm
Uh,
sure that nothing of what I told somebody else will be true for them, of what they took out of it. But one of the things I really found was this really deep visceral learning of the fact that like I am constantly trying to escape my body because there's so many sensations and so many uncomfortable sensations in our bodies at every single moment of the day. And
yeah.
that's why we constantly try to like escape to the future or escape to the past, and we spend so little time present. So I
Yes.
think like because when you're present, you're in your body, you're in your sensations, and that's when the intuition comes, right? And so it's like I think that may be a good distinction. And I'm just thinking out loud because like I'm trying to answer these questions for myself too. I'm like, what does it mean to be in your intuition, to be able to trust yourself, to be able to know when those impulses and those downloads are true
Yeah.
versus not? And I think you're right. It is like, okay, do you feel safe right now? Are you in your body? Are you in the present? Right? Are you not dissociating to the past or the present? And are you able to sit with all of that? And there's a little whisper that comes in. And that little whisper is about as true as stuff gets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of things. Just to kind of clarify, one of the things that I've found true for myself is that if it is highly emotional, if the reaction is highly emotional, it's not your intuition. So, and to me, fear doesn't speak, at least, and again, I know every person is individual, so I can make generalizations, and that's where, working individually with people is so important because everyone's intuition communicates with them in a very unique way. And like that's where, like so there's can't be like these kind of blanket, I don't really like these like blanket things across for people. It's just it's so individualized and like, I mean, I think of it as a relationship with yourself, and if you've abandoned yourself for so long or neglected that, like there has to be like a getting to know that, if you met someone, like on this, someone you're interested in, like it takes a while to like know the nuances of that person and their different particularities and things like that. But yeah, what I have found is that when there is like if there's something for me, the way if the way for my intuition, if there's something for me that's like not in my best interest, I'm like I don't want to do it. Like that's just like this feeling of like there's not fear associated with it. There's not this strong like reaction. It's just more of like that's a no. Like that's a clear no. Or like there's an I keep putting it off. I keep not wanting to kind of deal with it. But again, this is where the tricky part comes in is because you could also be avoiding things because of the, ego kind of coming in. And so you kind of have to like it's so nuanced. Deciphering all of this and kind of untangling it because there's just been so much kind of like packed on with each of us. But I love that you did the Vipassana meditation and like that body awareness. I have a similar story. I did Vipassana in Joshua Tree, I think in 2012 I did it. And, you sit there and like I popped out of my body. Like I, was like more because you sit there and you're not supposed to move until they tell you you can move. And so I was just like, I was in so much pain. My knees were hurting so bad. And I was like, no, they told me not to do it. Right. Again, power outside of myself. Right. Again, like that's kind of like this piece that I also speak about. But it's like, no, they told me not to move. And so I will listen and I will not move. I will not do it, even though I was in excruciating pain. And I just all of a sudden heard this and I was out of my body and observing what was like what was going on. And so, they have those times where you can go and ask the teacher, like in the little break times. And she was like, don't do that. If you need to move, please move.
Yeah,
Right?
I was told that if I hate it, I need to stop. Like if I
Yes.
absolutely hate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't get that message. I was like, do not move. So it's just, but again, it's just so funny how we outsource, at least, but speaking in particular, outsource my power. Oh, someone else told me. Right. And again, this is where this kind of piece comes in around, not listening to our intuition and outsourcing our power, outsourcing our guidance of what someone else, told me, to do. And so I'm going to do it no matter what, whether it hurts or not. And it ended up hurting me.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, like the kind of like the inner critic and why we outsource that power. Why we would say, "Oh, like, well, I don't know this answer," or like why would people start to seek answers outside of themselves, and how could you help them rebuild a better relationship with the
Yeah.
piece of them inside instead of seeking something
Yeah.
outside?
So I have a psychology background. And so, like, that's kind of, a lens that I also look through because that's also part of my training. So you can kind of, and I like to bring it in because it just helps kind of orient a little bit. So there's two different main theories that I look to in terms of like the development of the inner critic. One is from a developmental perspective, which is as we, essentially in the developmental perspective, your inner critic is the voice of your parents, of society, of your teachers that you took on to essentially kind of fit in, but also to like regulate your behavior. And it's actually a good thing that your inner critic kind of develops because it, prevents you from, you learn to like not touch a hot stove, right? Like or pull your pants down in the grocery store to go to the bathroom. It's like this, like, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. But it's like essentially what it is it's the internalized voices of all the times you've been told no or what you should do or what's good behavior. And like, and it's the voice that kind of keeps us in the good girl, good boy, good person box. So that's kind of like a developmental perspective. And then there's also the internal family system perspective, which is that it's a protector piece, that it comes in and, um, shows up to essentially to protect you, to keep you in good standing. But either way, it's a protecting part to keep you in good standing and to function, to be able to function with other adults and be in good standing with them. So I mean, if you look from the time, even if you just look at like how we were raised and how we were grown up, many of us were not taught like, what do you want to do? And what feels good for you? Or, or just even, being having a parent be really present with us and listen to us deeply and validate how we feel or how our body, just even just like working with our bodies and trusting there's so much kind of forcing, I just even, thinking about, I don't know, it just popped in my brain of like, you go to a lake and, and your body's just like, no, I don't want to jump in the lake. But your parents are like, no, go in the, like, don't be afraid. There's just kind of this so much forcing versus like, again, there's like nothing wrong with jumping in the lake, but like, it's like going at our own pace and listening to our bodies and like what feels right and true for us and like be having that freedom to be able to move and and do what we like. And so in many ways it's just we were just simply taught to like get, whether it's teachers, parents, religion, culture, society, um look outside of yourself for what is right and what is good and never inside. I mean, how many of us were taught? I don't know anyone. Certainly wasn't like, you know, yeah,
No. No, and then, like, actually what's coming up for me is I was thinking about yoga. So you're in a yoga class and the teacher is telling you to do something and you just go, "Yep, okay, I'm going to try to do that." And you're not in your body at all. And it takes so much practice to actually be in your body and be moving and be
yeah,
listening to somebody else telling you, "Okay, we're going to do this horribly complicated pose that only, three of you can do properly." And by
yes,
properly, I do mean like you're fully in your body, you're in your muscles, you're in the presence of every single part of you. You're flexing what needs to be flexed, you're relaxing what needs to be relaxed. And when you finally get a yoga pose, your body goes, "Oh, oh, that's what I wasn't doing." And you're like, "Oh, this actually feels really good." But
yes.
then you can also do yoga from a completely mind-based place where you're just following the
Oh,
instructions.
absolutely. Yeah.
And if and I mean, it takes a beautifully wonderfully good yoga teacher and also a combination of yourself being body aware and a good yoga teacher to be able to be in your own space and actually be discerning about what feels good to your body in every moment to moment, right? And be really present with that. And so it just makes me think of like the amount of times I've done yoga and like, was it actually good for my body? Yeah, kind of. I moved, but like, was it good for my actual full mind body connection? Not in the way that the yogis wanted it taught. Nope.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, or what's possible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that analogy. I currently do, I've been practicing yoga since 2008. What's so funny is, like, that's actually what started my spiritual path, is I remember my very first yoga class being in a forward fold and feeling my toes, what felt like for the very first time in my life. That's all I was doing was a forward fold, and, like, I had done forward I mean, I've been, played volleyball and basketball. I mean, I've done lots of forward folds in my life, but for whatever reason in that time and space, I just was like, "Holy cow. What else am I not feeling in my life?" Like, that was like this, this kind of awakening and, yeah, speaking exactly to what you're saying. And then I currently do hot yoga and I go so slow. Like, I am, like, usually, like, 5 poses behind, luckily, and that's what I kind of like is, like, when they just kinda teach the sequence and then you get to kinda do what you want, um, or do it on your own pace. But I'm usually, even when once the teacher's taught the sequence, she'll kind of repeat it over and over, and I'm usually 5 steps always behind because and my sister usually goes with me, and she was just like, "Wow, like, it's crazy to just see, people who seem to really be struggling, just struggling physically, just trying, to be everyone with everyone else versus, like, what's right for you. Is it just to lay down in child's pose because you gotta catch your breath and, like, that's, being full it's like being yeah, what allows you to be fully, fully present in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And so everything we're talking about here in my head, I'm like, yeah, so this is exactly what like I would suggest for sexuality, right? This is why we're having this conversation because it ties in so well. Like this is what sex is as well. It's trusting your intuition, trusting your body, knowing yourself, knowing what you want moment to moment. Like when you're tapped into that intuition, you're going to have the most amazing sex. And yesterday I was recording an episode that I have no idea if it's going to come out before or after this one, but I asked the person who is a sexual professional, like, what makes amazing sex? And he said, slowness.
Oh,
Slowness. And so the fact that you're like, yeah, I'm going super slow and I'm in my body and I'm not thinking too much about like, okay, yes, you've told me what to do and I'm going to follow it, but I'm going to follow at my own pace. And like, I'm constantly checking in on what's right. And I'm like, that's sex. That's,
yeah.
that's, that's incredible sex is what that is. Like
I like
it's trusting yourself, right? And like moving with that intuition. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like that's why I want to talk about this. Cause like even I talk a lot about sexual confidence and so I that's part of the tie-in here is I wanted to talk about like what does like confidence really look like and how does that relate to intuition and how does that relate to intimacy. And so like I think we almost like skipped over that of like self-trust versus confidence and like what does confidence really mean when it's in relation with intuition and self-trust.
Yeah. Well, I love this question because confidence can be so many different first of all, confidence is a subjective thing. That's the other really big point, is that confidence is subjective. And, there have been people, I mean, we've seen this. I'm sure we could all think of someone that we thought was really, really confident. And then we learn their backstory and it had extreme low self-esteem, you know, all of these kind of things. So first of all, confidence is subjective. The other thing too is that there's confidence can come, it's kind of like this umbrella term that describes a variety of things. And so, one can be confident just by being experienced, right? Like if I was to go and cut dog's hair, I don't know, I have some dogs that are like right here. Just an example, right? I would be like really not, I wouldn't be confident in cutting dog's hair, but like the more I learned and the more I practiced, and I think that that's where people usually take confidence is like, oh, I just need to get more experience and I just need to get more knowledge and then I'll feel confident because it's applied, because it's applied in other like aspects. But the true, like, then there's like confidence that's connected to self worth and self trust. And like that's, a different level of confidence where it's like there's like a solidity in your being, there's a solidness in who you are. You know who you are, you know what you're capable of, you know that you have what it takes to handle whatever comes your way. Like it's like kind of like a deeper level. Um and I know there's a common kind of misconception where people feel like they need confidence before they trust themselves, and kind of the realm that I'm working around confidence is like, no, actually confidence comes from trusting yourself. It comes from being able to rely on your own decisions and know that you can do what's best for you, that you can, um, really, it's kind of like handling anything. I mean, I know that that's why people say, unfuckable with, and like there's these, when people kind of talk about these things like for confidence, there is that, like, there's this, like, to me, it's like depth. It's not like it's being able to kind of face your darkness. I mean, that's where kind of like, all of this work kind of starts to come together because it's like when you can face the real you, which is absolutely glorious and magnificent, but we come thinking, no, it's going to be awful and horrible and dark and bad. And we can like we can face all that darkness to kind of discover what is, I mean, and I like, it's not like the dark is bad. I don't really kind of like to get in that kind of paradigm, but it's like finding how glorious and magnificent and beautiful and perfect we are, but we have to kind of go through that space of facing our fears ultimately is kind of what it is. So like that's the confidence that but it's trusting that you can um move through it, that you can be with it. And like that's again kind of tying back to the body and why we don't want to be in the body. Like that's kind of this process why healing work and being able to, and doing the somatic work is so important to self-trust. Because when we can start to come into our body and feel the things that we were so afraid of feeling, because when we experienced them we didn't have the capacity to deal with it, so there's so much fear of like, I can't handle this, I can't be with this, it's so overwhelming. But when we come back to those spaces and actually allow ourselves to feel it and be with it, we're like, oh wow, like I actually can do this, I actually can. And it starts to build that self-trust, um and leads into like this confidence, like it confidence isn't being free of fear and having no fear and having no shakes and having no worries. It's being able to keep taking action despite all that's showing up.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. That was glorious. There's there's so much in there. But yeah, being able to constantly be in motion with your own choices and just, yeah, like you said, trusting that, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out. And you there's I mean, one of the greatest lessons I took from Vipassana was the deeper embodied understanding between, like, okay, you can hear somebody talk about it, you can understand it at a mind level, and then you can also deeply, like, know it in your body, and that's wisdom. And
Yes.
so confidence has to come from a place of wisdom, is what you're saying. Is like, it
100.
it needs to be in your body. You need to have seen yourself do it. And so
Yes.
you can't have seen yourself do it without at least trusting yourself enough to do it in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you're kind of like connecting as well with like the mind and like mindset. I mean, like I said, I'm my client, so I have probably 50 different certifications and tools and all of this. And so I've studied manifestation work as well. If you want to shift your reality, you have to do things different. Like it's action. It's like in the 3D that, and it's not about thinking. You're like, and it's so funny because I've had people just be like, so like, I posted unpopular opinion, mindset, I don't even remember what I posted one time, but people just were so livid where I was just like talking about if you want to shift your reality, mindset is not the way. And they were like, that's just how it exists. Like you think about what you want and like that's how and I'm like, well, so if you think about dinner, making dinner, your dinner's just going to appear. No, you have to like make your dinner. You have to like put the ingredients together and put it, like that's just, but we get so stuck because it's so easy. We don't have to come into the body. And it's so easy to shift your mind. It's so easy. And in a way, it's actually beneficial for us manifestation wise. I mean, think about if every time we thought a new thought, it would shift our reality. I mean, it would be chaotic, right? Like, so it's like, it's fun. Like the mental body works because we get to try on all these experiences. Do I like this? When I think about it, do I like this experience? Do I like this experience? Ooh, this experience really excites me. But then you have to do something to make it happen, which is, I think so many people get like, I know I'm going kind of on a side tangent, but just like, they get addicted to like these insights. They get addicted to like insights but then nothing ever shifts. That's why, I see so many like spiritual people disempowered because they just get so caught up in like in the mental body and just thinking of all these different possibilities and realities and just insights and revelations, but then never do anything in their 3D reality to align to that new possibility or reality, and so it just, like, just hangs out in the ethers, essentially.
Yeah, and, it's so the manifestation work I do is through sex magic.
Ah,
And that's what
okay.
I teach, and that's what I bring to clients and workshops, and, I have a couple episodes on it, and so, yes, I love manifestation work, and, like, I also like, the key piece of sex magic is the part that comes after, which, just like you said, is the action. Is
Mm,
like, okay, so you've done all this work, you've thought about what you want, you've attached it to a very strong visualization, you've brought it into the body, you've really experience pleasure at the same time as experiencing this reality that you're looking to bring about. That adds fuel to it. You add like the sexual energy fuel to your new reality that you're looking for. Like, this is what sex magic is. You do all that work, and then it's not just going to happen. You also need to do the last part, which is sit down and write down the obstacles that are tangibly physically in the way, because
yeah,
like you said, like, we're trying to manifest stuff in a 3D reality. Like this isn't your little mind space. This is what's in front of us. And so,
yeah,
yeah, that most key piece that like is sometimes missed, and that I'm very glad that my teacher taught me about sex magic wise, was like, okay, and then you have to sit down and like actually make actions for yourself to
yes,
do, daily things, weekly things that actually shift your reality, because
yes,
there's your body, there's your mind, and then there's your reality and your actions, and they have to go together.
yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for sharing. That's so cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
sex magic.
And
I like
so,
that.
yeah, Six Magic. It's on my website. You can go do it.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so mindset. Yes, because I love, like, that is something you shared with me before, that like, this is an unpopular opinion. Mindset doesn't do it. And so I'm curious to pick your brain a little bit about that more. Like, where does mindset absolutely fail? And yeah, where is there a key shift there?
Yeah. Well, mindset, I mean, very clearly mindset fails somatically, right? Like like you are not your mind. I mean, there's multiple things like people identify with their mind and their thoughts and they think I mean, it's just incredible like, through the process when I first start working with a client, and everyone's kind of in different spaces, but how some people so identify with their mind and their thoughts. Like sometimes part of that work is disidentifying from the inner critic because they're like, no, the inner critic that is definitely me. That is my voice. Some people can't even hear it at first. So it's just constantly running in the background and it just becomes sorry, I thought it was glitching out. You can hear me? Okay. I thought it had stopped. Um, so yeah, so like where mindset fails essentially is exactly what you spoke to, which is that it's up here and it's not in the body, the somatics, the wisdom, right? We can learn all of these things, but if it's not felt, if it's not I mean, I'm still learning about, wisdom and how does it actually, because there's a very distinct thing from reading something in a book, learning about some type of spiritual concept or learning about something to act versus like physically actually doing it, right? It's like, or you're training to become an engineer, you read all, or a doctor, right? You read all the books, but it's like a totally different experience once you touch someone and if you're a surgeon and cut someone open, like it's that's where this just like it's so distinct and where I think people, I mean, I don't know. Like, I know everyone is so unique. I don't really fully understand people who only, talk about mindset, everything and like vision boards and just constantly thinking about what it's never worked for me. I don't know. I know people who make millions of dollars that say it works. I haven't I just don't know anyone personally, um, in terms of, like, manifestation, but also just healing work, like, we are energetic beings, and we're also physical beings, and our mental body is just an aspect of that, like, we're not our mental body, um we're not our mind, but we are in a physical body, and we are energetic beings. So that's kind of the quickest and fastest way in terms of healing. Um, but the action part, I mean, even with energy work, like you can shift energy work, but if you go back to doing the same thing, you're just gonna kind of recreate the same type of dynamic.
Right? Like you can have a physiotherapist that shows you how you're supposed to move your body to not cause it pain. But if you go back into your regular life and keep moving the same way you always did, the same pains will still show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This makes me think of like the Untethered Soul, the book The Untethered
Oh,
Soul by I can't remember his name, the
Michael
author.
Singer.
And then yes, thank you. And then like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mhm.
Both kind of like the same. I found that they were both kind of the same, but like opposite sides of the same coin, maybe,
Yeah.
of like you are not your mind. Don't identify with those inner words, those inner critics, those inner pieces. Like you can like I know a guy. There's also something to talk about in that space where it's like not everybody has the inner voice in their head. Like
Mm,
people's minds work in such different ways. Like I can play a movie of my old memories in my head and just like watch it. I can play a
wow.
movie in my head. It's great. I can
Yeah.
have a conversation between two different parts of me. There's also a voice that's always there, but that is not true for everyone. Like
Yeah.
I have a friend who's like, yeah, there's an entire podcast with like 5 guests going on in my head at all times. I'm like, cool, that's great. But like not everybody experiences that. But it's like getting to know the fact that like your mind is not you and you're the
Yes.
one who's observing your mind is a whole like again, you have to experience that. You have to look at that from so many different angles. Maybe throw some psychedelics in there and then you'll really get it.
Yes,
Like,
exact yeah, yeah. I don't know, such a fascinating thing of, like because I grew for me, the spiritual path and, like, um, Eckhart Tolle and Michael's all of these books and the spirit yoga, right? I mean, it's just so ingrained, like, you are not your mind, and so, like, that's kind of what I grew like, when I say grew up, it's, like, more of my spiritual path, that's growing up through that, and and then I came into the building a business and working with clients and then just seeing so much mindset and like I was just like, I don't understand, like, where is this coming from? Like, why are they like, what is the basis of this teaching? I don't know. To me, I'm still working it out. It's still a mystery to me. I don't fully understand it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's it's something to keep working with, something to keep
Yeah.
looking at, and I mean, the most trust I ever have in anybody I speak to is always like those of us who know that we don't know anything. Those of us
Yes.
who know that we know so much and we know so little and that there's so much more left to learn and
Yes.
like kind of humbly bowing yourself at the altar of all the knowledge in all of reality, all the wisdom that you know you
Yeah.
only have a tiny fraction of. And you say, you know what? Yeah, I surrender to the fact that I don't know that much. This is what I know. This is what I can speak to. And also, I know that I don't know anything.
Yes. 100%. I mean, that's the thing too, is sometimes, I do feel hesitant to say things sometimes because I'm evolving. At least I perceive, like I'm like constantly evolving. I'm like, that is my plan. And so what I thought 2 years ago has changed. And I hope that next year or in 6 months, like I think, something differently. And like that's part of the process. So it's like I like that and I value that in people who are like, I don't know. Like I genuinely don't know. Or like, this is what I think. This is from my experience. This is what I think right now. Um, but yeah, it's a constant evolution.
I had a yoga teacher that like this like really snuck into my mind. I studied like to be a yoga teacher when I was about 23 in Nepal. And so I had like these four Indian teachers that were like it was incredible because they were so young. Like some of them were younger than me, and I was already the youngest person in the program. And um, yeah, one of the things that they said to me was like, "I don't know" is the most wise thing you can say because it opens you up to the answer.
Mm,
And that stuck real hard, and I love that, and so, like, I never feel any shame at saying, "I don't know," and I think this ties back into the confidence piece of, like, you can still be confident and not know.
yes.
You can trust yourself and know that you don't know the answer, and that just opens you up to finding it. But
Yeah.
it's knowing when the real answer hits you like a brick wall or like a little whisper in the back of your ear. And yeah, there's no way to think your way through, right? Living a truly inspired life requires you to be in touch with your body and your sensations.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so much of what you were just sharing is like, we live in a culture where it's like it's not okay to not know the answer, right? Like that's how it's portrayed outside of us. Of like to be confident is to always know what to say, never have any silence. Like there's always this like Um, but it's so fascinating. I was watching I don't really watch very much television, but I did go on YouTube and it was so interesting. This popped up last night. There was this clip of these it was a clip. I don't know who these individuals were. I feel like they're probably quite big and they're into like body language. I think they like they used to work for the CIA. There was like these two guys and they were just talking about how to like spot a liar quickly. And one of the things that the guy said that really caught me is he's like, someone who's insecure, he's like, insecurity is very loud, confidence is very quiet. And it like struck me and I was like, it's so interesting, but you see that. And like, they were kind of giving examples of like, individuals who are really secure and like how clingy they can be. And like, they're constantly talking and constantly complimenting someone or, shifting kind of everything outside of themselves. And, um, yeah, I just love that because I love silence and I love being quiet and I love listening. And not that that means, I'm especially a confident person, but it's just like there is something, there is something about individuals that can just be quiet in the presence of another being.
Yeah. Another thing too, like somebody in my life has been shifting my perspective on like there's like when you're the one asking the questions, It's kind of ironic because of course I run a podcast and I ask questions to
Yeah.
guests, but in my personal life I actually end up getting a lot of questions like pointed towards me.
Mm.
And like especially if I find that, a lot of people are quiet, I'm like, okay, I'm happy to talk. Like I'll talk forever. But like I really do have to focus on shifting it away from myself in like regular conversations, or especially when I was younger, like I'm working my way into like it's a purposeful shift to ask others questions, to turn the light towards other people. Like that is something I've really worked on. And like just the idea was that, getting quiet and asking the questions, you're actually the one in control of the conversation. That the other person is talking way more, but you're the one who's learning and almost like directing the conversation. And yeah, that really hits me, that really sticks with me of like, okay, where can I be more intentional about, like, being the one asking the questions and not the one just, like, answering and responding to whatever dynamic is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. This as we're talking, to me, this feels very much like sex in a way, and, like, also well, no, like, but, like, also in the work that I do with clients and, them worrying about, like, I'm helping them feel more confident in their sessions, and that's this, like there's this give and take, right? And, like, it starts with each person individually being able to listen and be able to be with themselves, and, like and then developing that first and foremost to allow you to be with another person. And again, it comes back to being present and, like, tuning in um anyways, I don't know. It just kind of like when you were talking, it's like it's always like a dance, right? There's always this, like, especially, and there's this like balance and harmony that kind of just like ebbs and flows and yeah.
Yeah. Like, from an embodied space, everything is a dance. A
Yeah.
conversation is a dance. Sex is a dance.
Yes.
Like, yeah, everything is this, like, give and take and playful positioning of your mind and your body and your soul. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. And so I'd love to talk about being this, because one of your frameworks is being unapologetically truthful with yourself,
Mm,
right? Like
yeah.
not pretending, not performing. And so I'm curious what, like, of course, in your current body and mind as you are right now with the knowledge you've accumulated to
That
this
that
moment,
that may change after the call, right? I'm like, "Oh, man," That's what
right?
I
It's like, oh, that's what, yeah,
well,
that's what
that's
came
what's
out of my mouth in that moment. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Well, that's part of like, that's the other thing too is the experience, like, being able to experience ourselves and, like, being, you know I know it's so much easier to, like, seclude and just be in be in your own space, and, like, it feels safe and it feels comfortable, but when we engage with other people and we say things we didn't really mean, or we do things we didn't really mean to do, or, like, after it's just, like, there's so much growth and, like I mean, I feel like that's what we're here for, is we're here to, like, experience the fullness of life and to make mistakes and, like, self-discovery and, growing and evolving our consciousness. Um, but getting back, sorry, to your question about pretending and being, it's so funny because, as I was preparing to come on here and things just being open for, like, things to come, there was this thought that came in that I've never thought before, and I haven't really, like, fleshed it out, but I just thought it was really fascinating in terms of pretending and confidence. Because when you're pretending, you're always going to be self conscious because you're trying to be something other, right? So, like, there's always this thing outside of yourself of, like, am I being this thing? Right. So you're always going to be self conscious of, like, well, did I do that right? Like, versus when you're just being yourself, it's just natural. Like, it just naturally flows. Like, there's nothing to measure up. You just do it. You just do whatever you do. And, like, that is you? So, to me, that's being, there's also this piece of, like, I think also when you're asking about, like, the truthfulness, I really do love that saying, the truth will set you free, because I think it's so accurate in so many spaces and so key for like the healing work as we start to like, unpack some of this conditioning and all the stuff that was kind of put on us is to really allow ourselves to be like, I was hurt by that. I was angry. I was afraid. I am afraid. Um, I don't like this. Like that's that being radical honesty is like what moves the energy. It's what allows the healing to take place is like the stuckness comes in for a variety of different reasons, but one of them being not being honest, not being, I mean, we see it in everyday life when we do things we don't want to do, when we agree, when we don't have boundaries or we agree to things or we're people pleasing and there's so much, I mean, I feel like again, it comes into this body embodied, it's kind of like a felt thing, but like when you can say your truth, I'm sure we've all experienced it. And it's also can also be incredibly terrifying to actually speak your truth because you're like, are they gonna leave me? Are they gonna hate me? Am I gonna lose there's always that it comes with like a sense of maybe I'm gonna lose something or also something's gonna happen that I don't want to have happen or I'm not again, not capable of handling something. Um, but when you do it, the liberation that you feel is just like explosive. Like, I mean, it's just like it's kind of intoxicating in a way once you kind of get over on the other side of it. Um, but I do
Yeah.
think that truth is essential to the healing process and confidence and self-trust to be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause I mean, truth is almost it's like, how intimate can you be with yourself? How much can you handle who you actually are? Like, can you look at the more uncomfortable parts of yourself and not shy away and look at them simply going, "Okay, that's that's true." And you're never gonna move through it unless you can actually admit to yourself that that's how it is.
Yes.
And so, yeah, and so how does, that level have you seen or worked with clients that, have gotten to, that deeper level of intimacy with their own truthfulness, and, how have you seen that, shift their self-worth?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, it just even experiencing it myself, but seeing it in another individual. I was just working with someone last week and they had mentioned like coming to a point of realizing how much they hate themselves, right? Like navigating, right? But it was so fascinating is like, this individual, and again, I work with practitioners. And so when I first encountered um this person, they're an EFT practitioner. And so they like rather than kind of feeling emotions, they wanted to like tap their emotions away. It's a lot of like not wanting to feel into their body. And so as they've grown and as they've evolved and processed, there's deeper and deeper layers of like truth tapping into what's really down there. What are they really, like build like we construct our lives to be like to exist, to be able to get through, to get through the day. And so many of us are just surviving. Like we're not necessarily thriving. We're getting through the day. So it's like, I'm going to stack this on this so I can get up in the morning and I'm going to stack this on this so I can be in an unhappy marriage. And I'm, like, again, it's like, I really do feel like so many of us are just not living according to what is true for like what we genuinely want to do because we've bought into the 9 to 5 and white picket fence and we've bought into someone else's dream. And so there's kind of all these things that are kind of like packed on. And so when we start to unpack that, some of that starts to get down. I mean, we start to get into like ancestral stuff and generational stuff and um awakening to you know past things that we've done in past lives that maybe we're not the most proud of. And so, um, yeah, I feel like I kind of got lost a little bit in the question. It's like, wait,
I
what was the
I love
question again?
watching you watching you get lost because your train of thought is so fascinating, so I'm having so much
Uh,
fun just,
oh,
watching you go into these, little bubbles, and you're like, "Oh, I went so on the sidetrack." It's like, "Great, yeah, sidetracks
yeah,
are where it's at." This is
side
what
tangent
this is
galore.
it's the juice, right? Like, "No, no, no, don't answer my question." Throw it out the window and go, "You know what that made me think of? Yeah, let's go there." Like, that's way more interesting.
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, at least I'm not in the space of like, oh, this is what she asked, so you gotta answer it exactly. I'm like, I forgot your question. I'm sorry. No,
Well,
I
but like that you're demonstrating again, like you said, you're showing people what's possible. That's exactly what you're doing here too. Like there's an honesty in being like, I can't remember what the question was. There's an honesty in being like, and I don't really know, but this is what is coming up for me. And like
yeah,
that again shows that like confidence exists at the same time as uncertainty.
yeah, yeah,
And that like I love what you're saying. And that's exactly what like what you were saying in your last answer of like so many people have forgotten how to live. So many people have forgotten how to tap into the most eh, deepest wisdom that there exists in this world is inside of you, not
yes,
outside of you. So many people have outsourced their power. So many people have said, "Oh, that's what you want me to do? Great, I'm going to do that." Like bringing it all the way back to the beginning when you were talking about like kids knowing what they need to eat. They did an experiment where all these children were given like a bunch of different foods and every single kid went and took a different food in the room because they all knew exactly what their bodies needed
yeah,
because that hadn't been trained out of them. Just like you
yeah,
said, there's like layers upon layers upon layers of bullshit that weighs us down as we grow and we're being taught all these things. We're being taught to not trust ourselves and being taught that, you know, the government has our best interests at heart, which like, take it all with a grain of salt, take what works, don't take what doesn't, and
yeah,
trust yourself more than anything else.
yes, yes, yes. And to add on, I mean, what you just said is like giving me goosebumps. And there's also, this other thing that everyone is so magnificent. Like to me, like I even get emotional when I start talking about it because it's like, imagine a world where people are living their truth. And it's everyone is so unique and like what each individual has to offer and contribute is so magnificent. And we're just, right now, like so many of us are just like walking around like, zombies and, 9 to 5. And like, it's like I go to the grocery store and like I love like, just like not like having a full I'm much more introverted and quiet in general, but like having, just being like hi, like acknowledging someone. And it's just incredible. Like, just so many people are just like walking around the grocery store, head down. Um, there's just we all have, it is my true genuine belief, we all have this divine spark that is so unique and so incredible and comes with so many gifts and like offerings that makes the world a more beautiful, incredible place to exist. Like that's the world that I want to live in. And like that's, what I'm doing my part is to help waken that up to people and like live from that space, which it is weird, like people think I'm a weird person. I don't think I'm weird, but like when you start doing things that are true to you, like people do see it as weird, you're like not fitting in like the rest of the people. Um, but it's exhilarating and other people do see it and they do notice it. So yeah.
I'm a self-proclaimed weirdo too. I've always been weird. It's great. I love it. And I think my dad taught me at an early age. He was like, "I'm a nerd. I love being a nerd." I'm like, "Great. I'm a nerd too. That's awesome." And that turned into being weird. That turned into being
Yes.
very self-righteously absolutely weird because nobody's normal.
Yes.
Hate to break it to you, if you're trying to be normal, you're trying to be like somebody else or your idea of what somebody else is, which is even worse somehow.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and like, yeah, being again confident in your weirdness, being confident that you've got your spiciness, you've got your like even when we talk about like a normal brain versus like a neurodivergent brain and like
Mm,
I like to call it neurospicy
mm,
because we're all neurospicy. I'm sure you
yeah.
like
Mhm.
and like that encapsulates all of us. We're all neurospicy. When somebody tries to talk to me about how, "Oh, you probably have this or this." I'm like, "Okay, and does it matter?" Because do
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
care if I'm a tiny bit ADHD or a tiny bit this or a tiny bit that? It doesn't impact my life in a way that I can notice. So I'm
Yeah.
going to keep doing this.
Yes.
If it does
Yeah.
impact your life, great. Go see if pharmaceuticals help or some behavior change helps or
Yeah.
yeah, that thought derailed too, but
Yeah.
anyways. So okay, a couple last questions here.
Yeah.
I think one that I really want to ask you is like if people are constantly second guessing themselves, and doubting and kind of stuck in this loop of self-doubt, or find themselves like, okay, they'll have a moment of confidence and a moment of self-trust, and then they'll kind of divulge back into that place of like second guessing. How do they start to actually rebuild that self-trust and actually start to make changes in their lives?
Yeah. It's such a great question. And again, it my I want to just kind of preface and say everyone is so unique and so individual that having kind of a blanket statement is difficult because every like it's just kind of in people need to be met where they are and kind of like processed in that. I will say in general, one of the first things that I recommend when someone, and just even for myself, when I'm overthinking, which I definitely go into, or anyone else, pause, like stop and notice. Notice, like feel your body, like whether that's closing your eyes, taking, like the biggest thing is to stop immediately and breathe. I mean, I'm given tons of kind of different things that one could do, but like stopping for sure, pausing and feeling into the body. Now there could be for sure, one could because when you're overthinking, you're in your mind and disconnected from your heart. So one of the things that I love to do is like what things get me into my heart? What things help me feel connected to my heart. It could be music. It could be listening to whales, music like that always like I'm just like, "Oh, I love that so much." It could be going for a walk. It could be playing with your children, playing with your dogs, going for a swim. I mean, anything. And again, that's where it's just so individualized because like what brings you into your heart is going to be different from me versus, everyone else. So really we've got to kind of first and foremost find what brings us into our heart. Um, and just knowing that when you're spinning in your mind, you're disconnected from your body. So there's the heart piece, there's the getting into the body piece. And again, this is where it can kind of get a bit tricky because when I say, to some of my clients, when I start working with them, get into your body, they're like, no, you know, because it's just like, that's an unsafe place to be. I don't like being in my body. I don't like feeling these sensations. And so, like, that's where this kind of healing work comes in of like, being like reconnecting and starting to process those things, the sensations, the emotions that are stuck in the body so that you can start to inhabit it more, is really key.
And once
Somatic work.
again, yeah, once again, that's exactly how my own somatic sex coaching works as well, right? Where it's like most people don't feel safe in their bodies, and you must feel safe enough in your body to be present, to be relaxed and relating with someone else, which is terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. And
Yes.
it's exactly that. But yeah, thank you for that reminder, because that is like, I asked the question, and it's like, oh yes, of course. That
Yes.
is like, I need to hear that once a day, because we talk about it and it happens to us all the time. Like,
Yes.
we lose my center and start overthinking and have to remind myself to pause. And I don't
Yeah.
always remember. Sometimes I'm unresourced. Sometimes I'm too tired. Sometimes
Yes.
I've just had a long day. And there is beauty. Actually, there was one moment a couple weeks ago where I got kind of triggered, and I realized, because I've been really working on my triggers by, like, if something, which a trigger I would just call something that, like, yeah, kicks me into my mind, kicks me into
Mhm.
overthinking, kicks
Mhm.
me into thinking of scenarios or things that aren't helpful, and makes me physically uncomfortable with being in the present.
Mhm.
And yeah, and so I got triggered, and I thought, and I tried to do the thing where I was, letting myself be in that thought and not reacting, and trying to calm my nervous system and all those things, and it just wasn't working.
Mm.
It just wasn't a thing that day or that moment, and I just had to get really honest with myself and say, "You know what? I'm too tired to do this. I'm too tired
Yes.
to do this work right now, and I'm just gonna let
Yes.
this go, and I'm gonna go to
Yes.
bed instead." And it was the best choice, because 'cause I'm not
Great.
gonna get frustrated, I'm not gonna, like, keep spinning my wheels. So there's also so much body awareness and realizing, "Oh, I actually can't do this right now," or "This
Yes.
is outside of my window of tolerance, and I actually need to just soothe myself instead. I can't do the work. I need to, yeah, listen to music, distract myself, soothe myself instead."
Yes. And I love what
Yeah.
you shared because it shares again the uniqueness of every individual and situation and experience. And so, that's why it's to me so difficult to kind of do blanket statements because, I'll say something that may have worked for me in the past, but it's not applicable to your situation. And so, like, again, that's where developing a relationship with yourself and your intuition, like, to me, you trusted your intuition, right? Like, you listened to what was best for you, you took action on it. Like, it's building, I mean, I see you as a confident person, but, like, your ability to be able to tune in and listen and trust, that is confidence in action.
Yeah. I mean, I see me as a confident person too.
I love
Oh,
it.
but
I love
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so as we wrap up today, is there anything on your heart, anything that really wants to be said that hasn't been said yet?
Oh.
Yeah, anything else?
Well, I definitely want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to chat with you and um, you know, for your listeners and whoever listens to this is like I don't know, what immediately just popped in my mind is just how amazing you are. Whoever, you, Kris, whoever listens to this. And like, I do prayer and meditation every day. And like one of my constant prayers is that people would feel and know how loved they are and seek after that love, whatever that looks like. And so, I think I just want to share, like, I guess just saying, follow your bliss and follow your passion because that is your intuition.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for today's incredible episode. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it was
I
really
love
fun. Thank you.
Yes, and I love how much we tied in these 2 subjects, and I love that, initially it was like, where does this fit?" And it's like, no, it's confidence. Confidence and intuition is so much of sex, and I love being able to talk about it in a different way and relating these different things, and also, you know what? I talk about sex a lot. Let's talk about something else.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and it's 100%, I mean, it is 100% applicable. Like everything that we spoke about and chatted about is, but I just love the alignment. I love as well, like, with what we were talking about. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, thanks so much, and if people wanted to find your work or, contact you, speak to you more, where could they do that?
Yeah, on my so I have a website, andreajanssen.net. And then I also have like a free ultimate, it's called the Ultimate Inner Critic Interrupter. And so some of the things that I shared on here, getting connected to your intuition, processing emotions is in that inner critic um free guide. So yeah, check that out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All those links will be in the show notes to go click on and find. And yeah, thanks again. This was so much fun.
Thank you.